Awesome. I think we're live. What's up, everybody, and welcome to another episode of The Block is Hot here. Today we have a pretty exciting interview with the CEO, Nav, of Iagon. So I've covered Iagon briefly in the past that we were just talking about before we actually went live here, but we're just going to ask him some different questions. He's going to talk a little bit more about the project and the protocol so we know a little bit more information about it. And throughout this call today, guys, if anyone has any questions, feel free to just put them in the chat and we'll go through them. And also make sure to share this live stream on Twitter and wherever you guys are viewing this. So, yeah. But let's get started here. Who are you, Nav? What's sort of your background? How did you get started with this whole entire Iagon protocol?
Yeah, nice to meet everyone. I'm Navjeet. I'm actually from the healthcare profession myself. I got into the space back in 2013. So I that's when I read the Satoshi paper, and being from the healthcare as a healthcare professional, and working in and day out in that field, data was kind of the data privacy and patient privacy was kind of the head of the steam there. So, you had to keep records safe, you have to keep records private, information private, So a lot of things that we dealt with on a day-to-day basis, dealt with a lot of the things that we're working on today. But at that time, I had a lot going on with my personal life. So I did just to give you a brief background of my history before. I did programming in high school, but I kind of leaned into the healthcare industry because my parents pushed me in that direction, which I don't regret because it allowed me to establish my footing, right, as an entrepreneur. So I opened up a couple of businesses here in Norway, and also had two kids during that time between 2013 to early 2017. And early 2017 is when I started focusing on the Iagon idea a little bit more. And I approached some industry experts within the space that had skill sets maybe that I didn't have because I had more from a business background, healthcare professionals. So I wanted to talk to people that understood the technology better than myself. And I talked to a few other, I'd say, currently our co-founders right now. Other people like Dr. Rohit Gupta, Dr. Claudia Lima, and Dr. Alad Harrison. All of them have different skill sets that they bring to the table as co-founders. Rohit, for example, wrote his thesis back in 2005 in regards to decentralized compute, which relates directly to what we're doing today. And he finalized his thesis in saying that, it wasn't possible to incentivize the resource providers or the nodes that are allocating their idle capacities. So when we approached him with a token model like Iagon's, then he was very excited to jump on board. A little bit background on Rohit. He's a former director of technology for Expedia, currently one of the senior managers at Google. He's working part-time with Iagon on a biweekly basis just to follow up on the progress and where we're at. We also have Dr. Alad Harrison. He's from Israel. Rohit's from the US. And he's a machine learning expert. He's an economics professor, and he brings, let's say, the learning of behavior. We'll talk about that in terms of the architecture later. Learning of the behavior of the nodes to the table. And we had Dr. Claudio Lima, lastly but not least. He's also from the US. He's the former CTO of Huawei in East Asia. He's working on basically blockchain architecture and helping businesses and politicians, actually governments, understand the architecture of blockchains. So all three have different expertise, and that allowed us to kind of construe not construe, like build the Iagon model in a different way. So initially we focused on healthcare records. After we got talking, it expanded a lot more from there. Instead of just focusing on healthcare records, it bring in compute, storage, and managed in an efficient way. So using machine learning techniques, what makes us kind of unique? I guess I'm going on beyond the intro of myself and making intro of Iagon, I guess, as well. But just to give you an intro of how that became, so that how we built our model and became much more than it was in the beginning, and just a small idea.
No, I think that's really great that you went through that background, because one of the biggest things I always ask about is the team of a project. Because obviously you can't do everything yourself, Nav. Maybe you
Yeah,
can, and maybe I'm, but yeah,
yeah,
you know, it's important to have a group of people, and especially people that are experienced, and even more so, especially with what you guys are trying to do, have the experience in that field. And you know, the blockchain technology really opening up the doors to a lot of different possibilities, and we can go into the architecture a
yeah.
little bit later into this. Now, I'm sure there's also, I want to say real quick, I didn't know you were from Norway. That's super cool, because
Yeah.
part of our partners with Block Owls, they're also from Norway.
Oh wow.
So I
Okay.
talk to them all the time. I want to
Right.
visit them at some point.
Yeah.
But yeah, man. So to kind of go on to this, there are people listening that might have never heard about Iagon before. They might have heard that you just have like this great team and background, all this stuff. But what's sort of the general overview of the protocol? What are you guys really trying to accomplish? And how sort of is this blockchain technology kind of separating you from, I guess, the traditional sense? And I know that's a
Yeah.
multi-part question there.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, to put it in a simple way, I guess we always like to use Airbnb as a simple kind of analogy. So Airbnb for storage and compute, right? So we're matching end users that need storage, and companies that need storage to users that have storage, idle capacities, and have compute. So right now, currently focusing just on the storage side. And why the blockchain matters in this case is more so for compliance and also decentralization, security, and privacy. So a lot of things that happened in leading up to 2017, there was a lot of talk in EU and in general about data compliance. And people get scared when they hear that word, right? Compliance. It rings a bell, but this is different from financial compliance, because financial compliance, what happens there is that there's on people in the banks and governments want to control your funds, control what's going in and out, and understand what you can't and cannot do. So it's more so of a control level, whereas compliance in the data sphere is more so focused on, let's say, protecting data, making sure that third parties like Facebook, like Google, and other big companies don't misuse your data in a way that you're selling data to third parties. And that, like, for example, you had a big problem with kind of sharing data with the US, for example, right? So they don't want their citizen data to be out. So they had implemented this law called GDPR, which in sense basically means that in the data can't be transferred, private data cannot be transferred outside of the EU. And there's other laws within GDPR, like right to be forgotten and things like that, that try to protect the individual rights in terms of data. So while we're building this Airbnb, what makes us different for storage and compute, what makes us different from the centralized players is that we're able to comply with a one-click button. Whereas, for example, AWS and Google is built in a way that they cannot be compliant, because they're constructed in that way. And in order for them to be compliant, they'd have to deconstruct their current business model. They can do it because they have the manpower, they have the skill sets, but they would go against the business model that they have. They'd lose a lot of money just building up a new platform, right? So they would rather just keep on building, and it's actually easier for them to pay these fines instead of building a new platform. So what we do, going into a little bit of detail in how AWS and centralized players store data, is when you store data on a centralized server, you have a one file in one place at one specific time. That means that if that server or that's let's say, data center is hacked or breached, then all the data from that server is leaked, right? So that's kind of a central failure, right? So now what we're doing is what Iagon's doing differently is, which other decentralized storage platforms are doing as well, is what we're doing is sharding the data, meaning we're slicing the data and encrypting each shard, each slice, and spreading it across, and how the other spreading it across to the people that are providing the storage. But most, let's say, decentralized players do that part randomly, right? So they randomize the shards into any different location. The problem with randomization is that you don't get the efficiency that you would get from a specific centralized server. Like you get a fast upload, fast download, right? But how do we fix that and meet in the middle somehow? And that's where Iagon's trying to fix that, is that we're spreading the shards, but we're spreading it in a way that the user specifically wants. So if they're in the EU, we spread the shards specifically to EU because that we can comply with GDPR compliance. We can also spread it in a way that they want higher performance, higher availability, different metrics that might be important to them, and we're spreading these shards accordingly to their needs. So, and they can choose freely how they want that allocated, right? And that's what makes us different from, and that's alleviates us, let's say, from, not alleviates, that's not the right word, but that differentiates us from centralized players and decentralized players. From centralized players, we can decrease the cost by a lot. We can also have even more efficient services because we are able to go to the nearest kind of data provider, nearest server that might be even more closer than the centralized server, right? So efficiency, cost efficiency is one of the biggest factors. Now we're offering about, I think the price that we said was $2 per terabyte is what we are going to be offering in a subscription package when our product is launched. So that's one of the things. So pricing, privacy, and security. I guess that's the differentiation.
Yeah, so the big thing that, so to kind of summarize some of that, the big thing that you guys are going to be offering, at least in the beginning, is really this cloud data storage. And the big thing that's sort of differentiating you guys from some of the bigger players, because I know like Amazon and Google, a couple of these major giants. So the biggest thing that's differentiating is how you guys are storing the data with the sharding, and you can be compliant, whereas these more centralized areas aren't as compliant. It also seems to sound like there's more security because it's not in one centralized server that could be
Correct.
hacked. And then you guys essentially, I'm assuming, can charge a more cost efficient or lower rate because of how the incentivization works with your token.
Correct. And for the people that are providing the resources, they get in return IAG tokens, right? And they're incentivized to provide that storage, thereby decreasing the price of the actual storage itself that we're giving out to the end users. But the main thing is, this enables us in terms of the compliance. A lot of people don't know that a lot of Web2 customers in Europe and everywhere have huge headaches when it comes to compliance, data compliance, what I'm talking about. So if you provide a solution that is a one-click solution to be compliant, there's a lot of businesses that are interested in that type of solution.
So that's kind of what I was going to ask next, because I've remembered I wasn't using the storage per se, but more so like a cloud server on Amazon just to like run some stuff that my computer couldn't handle. Now, when it comes to different businesses that are looking for this storage solution, why are they more so going to pick you guys over something like Amazon? Do you think that you guys off the rip would have more, I guess, so trust with that storage based on how you guys are doing things? Because like I think it had brought up like Netflix might be using Amazon to store some of their stuff. So what would cause, I guess, Netflix to be like, okay, I can trust Iagon to basically handle and process some of this information?
Yeah, of course. I mean, trust has a lot to do with everything, right? But everyone should know that Amazon, maybe not Amazon AWS, but Amazon in general is not the most trustworthy company when it comes to retail customers. But, and there has been data breaches, not specifically due to Amazon itself security, but the implementation of AWS in the business aspect. There's always data breaches and data leaks every couple of weeks, right? So how that we can alleviate that is that what whoever uploads the data, first of all, that's the only person that has access. And if you give access to another person in the company, of course you can get access to that, but only those people have access to the data. There's no one else. There's no middleman. There's no, in terms of how that has access to your data. AWS has access in a sense. They can access your data, right? So it's even more private and more secure and more cost effective. But businesses like Netflix won't consider that cost effectiveness as a high priority on their list. What they want is efficiency and basically, let's say, making sure everything works, right? That's the main thing. And trust comes with time, of course. It's not going to come overnight. We have to focus on maybe focusing on a different target market in the beginning with smaller companies, SMEs, and working our way upwards, because the trust comes with time, and eventually there will be a need for this type of service where it's one-click compliance. It eventually, if, for example, if we get enough node providers, we'll be even more efficient for Netflix, because now we can ping servers near the person that's watching the film instead of one server in a specific country, and the latency is much quicker. So, and that's an ideal scenario, of course, in for example, in the future when we have enough nodes. But in terms of now, what we can offer now is a one-click compliance and a much more cost-effective solution. And I think that'll be very intriguing for SMEs and, of course, the Web3 marketplace.
Yeah, and no, and I agree with that too. So kind of my next question is you've brought up these node operators a couple times now. How exactly do these node operators work? Because even me, I saw that anyone can sort of be a node operator. I even saw like that whole tweet thread where you guys were saying it, you guys made it super easy to be an operator. Like, what does that sort of entail? Like, how does that work? Do we offer storage from our own computer? Like how exactly does this whole entire node operation work, and what's kind of the incentive for people to, I guess, want to do that?
Yeah. So, I mean, the one thing that, one second, someone was calling me. Yeah, I think Trim was calling me. Yeah. So the node node operations, basically what they will node operators, how they will earn is, first of all, they would provide their storage, and how they would provide their storage is they have to download an Iagon software, install it on any machine. For example, if you have Windows, MacBook, we support almost every type, and so every type of setup. And once you install the software, from the software, it's easy to follow. You basically make a certain amount of storage available and make sure that it's up and running. That's it. So it's running in the background. It's not disturbing you. Of course, there is per se like updates and things like that. You have to maintain the node, and we do want, of course, the most efficient data. But it's passive revenue, meaning that if you provide the storage, you get a certain amount of IAG in return while you're providing the space. So, and you can choose how much you want to provide, right? In currently on the testnet, on what's available, we don't have any limitations on terms of the minimum amount of data required or the maximum amount allowed. But in the future, there will be a minimum amount of data that's required that has a specific amount of speed and read-write capacity, meaning that it has to be efficient. We can't just have, let's say, floppy disks on the network, right?
Dude, it's kind of interesting because I first got into crypto around 2017, and it was because my friend who had started crypto mining, and he
Yeah.
was like, "Dude, you've gotta like, I'll help you set some of this up." And it looks like Tyra might have joined, but he's
Yeah.
like, "Dude,
So,
I'll help you set some of this up." and we made like a 6 GPU mining rig and was starting to like basically mine Ethereum.
Yeah.
So it was really cool. So I had sold my rig, earlier in 2018 when things were crashing. I didn't know what I had just invested in. I had made
Mhm.
some money in it, but this sounds pretty cool though. How I guess someone, if they wanted to, could basically buy a whole entire setup with tons of storage. And potentially, depending on how well Iagon does, or if they believe in you guys or your vision or stuff like that, it could end up being a pretty awesome, like almost like passive mining type experience.
Correct. It's much easier. We want to make it simple as possible, right? And that's one of the things that we are also focusing on is simplicity, right? We know that in order to onboard the kind of the populace in terms of the majority of the crowd, it has to be much simpler than let's say platforms are currently or other projects are currently. It has to look neat, easy, simple to follow.
Yeah, and I totally agree with that. Just making it so easy that anyone can be onboarded.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you guys are doing that. But what's up, Triumph Brusette? What? How's it going, man?
Hey, very good, thank you. Yeah, I'm sorry I was a little bit late. I was just wrapping up some things, but yeah, very nice to join.
Yeah, man. Did you want to do like a quick intro of like who you are, so people aren't like, oh, who is this guy?
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, my name is Trim. I work as a consultant in the Cardano ecosystem. I actually helped Iagon with the transition from Ethereum over to Cardano in 2021. With a lot of the redesigns, I made a new file sharing algorithm or file sharding algorithm, the way that the files are broken up and distributed across the network. Reworked some of the incentive models and the payment system and a lot of things really in the system. Since then, I've been providing a bit of support with on the dev side and sort of with everything from parameterizations to the marketplace and all of these things. So yeah, I'm I'm really happy to see the recent developments. The delivery of the beta version of the nodes. The public API testing, all of this stuff. It's really fun to see everything actually come into code and people interacting with it. Actual files are being distributed. It's working as intended, which is very encouraging.
That's awesome, man. Yeah, before we even started the stream, I was saying it must be a pretty exciting time for you guys just when months and months of work is finally able to be released a little bit. You also have a cat in the background, which is nice. I'll add 50% more views to the video later. So
Yeah, there's actually two more around here somewhere, but
nice.
Does
But
that mean
dude,
150?
uh-huh.
Does that mean 100%, 150%?
150%.
Yeah.
But speaking of like roadmaps now, because I think that's the big thing. And, one of the reasons I wanted to have this stream and people were asking for it was because supposedly a lot of stuff's about to come out. Like you guys have a mainnet supposedly about to come out, all this stuff. What's sort of like the next steps here? And I know like timelines can get delayed, but what's sort of the next steps here? And I guess like kind of rough roadmap / timelines of what people can expect.
Yeah, I mean, right now we're focusing on storage mainnet. So what people can expect from that is a storage app where you can store your files and manage your files, share your files. And also, we're going to have something called Ledger Flow, which is already kind of a little bit brief, kind of beta test already out. But we're going to add additional multi-sig to the Ledger Flow. So it's going to be very easy and simple to use multi-sig, meaning that if people don't know what a multi-signature is, basically it's let's say if you have a bank account and you want to share it with a couple of people that you trust, you can give the signature to them and you can create rules within that account, meaning that let's say you require 2 out of 3 signatures to make a transaction. So certain rules of these can be created. And what the Ledger Flow does is that's an accounting a simple way to put it. It allows you to pay, receive invoices. It allows you to organize your accounting, your information, your assets. It allows you to build a multi-sig, for example, if you're an organization, a project where you can send and receive funds and make it easy for example, third parties, like, for example, auditors and accountants to have a simple and easy to read kind of paper. So everything will be very neat and tidy, and everything's using the infrastructure that's we built around it. So why we're building this, people might ask, why are we doing this? We're doing storage and compute. Why this? Because we're trying to take. We have to understand that a lot of the bigger companies like Google, they had the infrastructure in place, and then they built tools around it to make use cases. So you use Gmail, you use Google Drive, whatever that is, but you're unknowingly using the infrastructure around it. And that's what we're trying to do here. We're trying to create useful tools in the Web3 space like this, Ledgerflow. And eventually, later, we can talk about Stature, but Stature and different tools that we built around the infrastructure that create unique use cases that will help kind of use the storage as well. Because storage itself, maybe not the best kind of business strategy, but it does help. We're going to have something like similar to Dropbox in terms of sharing and downloading, uploading files.
Awesome. And then when it comes to people being node operators and like running their own nodes, do you guys have like a timeline when that will go live?
So right now the testnet's already available. We have over, I think, last time I checked, which was a few weeks ago, which is around more than 220 nodes, but I think there's much more now, at least 300 as far as I understand. So you can join the testnet now. And what will happen during the mainnet is you're able to stake your IAG tokens, so you can become a resource provider. The reason why you have to stake your IAG tokens is to create a trust bond between the network and the node operator, because you can have, let's say, bad actors that might want to put a lot of nodes on it and just suddenly take it down, right? And that's not what we want, right? We want to make sure that there's a trust bond between us and the resource provider. That way they have some money at stake, that, okay, I'm willing to stake this much to provide this much storage, and they get return in IAG tokens. So how the staking works, if I can go into that in detail, but this is just more so for the roadmap in terms of the mainnet. The Ledgerflow is coming out with the multi-sig. We're waiting audits right now for the 3 contracts, which is the subscription. So people that are signing up and paying for this idle capacity and the features that are available, and the staking contract, and also we have the multi-sig contract that's being audited. And we're pending this, we will release mainnet. After that, we're focusing on decentralized web hosting. It'll be static and dynamic, as far as I understand. And that will be working right after that. So that's another use case on top of the infrastructure. Later on, next year down the road, as we work on the decentralized web hosting, we will also working on Stature, which is a reputation protocol. I can go into that in detail later. But also we have the compute side, which is CPU and GPU. So storage is one side, and then next year we're going to be working on making compute resource available as well, which is CPU and GPU. That will combine something like what Render is doing on the other side, right? So it'll be Render kind of plus Filecoin, I guess, in a more compliant fashion.
Nice. And by the way, guys, if anyone listening has any questions, feel free to put them in the chat, and we'll try to cover them as well. I did see a comment from Addy Hug. He said, data breaches are costing billions, people having identity stolen. This sort of tech would go a long way to keeping data safe. It's the question of, how do you market this product to mainstream business?
Yeah, that's a really a tough question, right? The luckily thing is we actually were a little bit funded with grant money from Innovation Norway, which is a government-funded program. And Innovation Norway has a huge network with the Web2 companies, right? We have outside of that scope already connected with two clients already, which we're doing pilots with. One is Scepter, which is a legal firm here in Norway, and one is called Swiss Vault, which is based out of Switzerland. So these two companies are already onboarded. It is very hard when you're approaching and talking about blockchain, but when we're going to market, when we're actually reaching out to these customers, we're talking about the compliance part most. And that's what they really, really get interested in, because you'd be surprised how many big companies are really stressed about the compliance part and how to manage it. They get a lot of questions. Every time Azure has an update, for example, people that are using Microsoft Azure, and they talk to the legal team. Does this affect this? Does this affect that? There's a lot of questions still unanswered on that regard. So when you say that to a company that, oh, can you actually be one-click compliant? That solves a lot of problems for these businesses. So to go-to-market strategy is at our disposal because of that feature. We don't have to talk about the blockchain part of it so much. Instead, just talking about the compliance feature, they're really intrigued by that.
Yeah, what's really interesting too is I think data is one of those things that is going to be highly debated over the next 5, 10, 15 years. It's something that I hear coming up all the time. And I don't have like a background in data or anything like that, but as like a US citizen, like I've seen articles where it's like data is the new gold, data is the new oil. The amount of information that our phones are taking from us, like listening in on us and giving us ads and stuff. So
Yeah.
I think it's going to be a real hot topic thing. And to be data compliant with one click, like you said, would be a huge thing. Now I'm kind of confused. Like, why is Amazon and Google and all these things not compliant? Like, I know you said in the beginning that they'd have to change a bunch of stuff around, but this seems like something that would maybe be prioritized more.
It's not though, right? Because what would happen so they're built in a way with the infrastructure that they have different data centers in different Pacific countries. So they're not spread out. They don't have a lot of nodes that a decentralized node, for example, node project or company would have, like Iagon, right? Because you have a lot of devices connected instead of a few big data centers, right? So problem with AWS not being compliant is because they're operating in many different scopes and they're just intertwined. So anything that you upload on in Europe can be accessed for something in the US, for example, right? That's just a small thing. It might sound like a small thing, but it means that in premise they are not compliant. So why it'd be difficult for them? Well, why can't? Of course they can do it. The reason why they can't or won't do it is because they'd have to tear down the whole infrastructure that they've already built. So they'd have to fire everyone. They'd have to tear down their data centers and build afresh in that construct. That would be way too time consuming, way too much money for them. Would be easier for them, for example, and we're not planning on selling, but it'd be something they'd be more inclined to purchase a smaller company that gains this traction rather than build on their own, if that makes sense, because they have the power to do so, right?
And
Yeah,
in a lot of cases as well, they built and they designed these systems before the regulations came into being, right? The GDPR, these kinds of regulations that we were sort of really targeting our use case for, came into play after all of these things were set up. And then imagine having to take down these data servers for a certain period of time because you're rebuilding the infrastructure or the way things are connected. On the client side, for someone like Microsoft or AWS or Google Cloud or whatever, imagine the disruption to literally everything if suddenly the biggest cloud providers had to take some downtime, redo their whole infrastructure. It would just be chaos. So
Yeah, that's kind of
as
like an edge that you guys have with not being a little bit later to, you guys are super early of doing this with blockchain tech, but like being later to the data space in general is that you
Yeah.
guys can kind of set up the infrastructure already to be compliant. So hopefully it can stay compliant. Hopefully things don't change too much. Or even
Yes.
now you guys are running into issues or
Well,
something. Who
no,
knows?
that's the beauty part of it. We built it in a modular way, so it's much easier for us to change
To
anything
change
that
gears,
yeah,
basically.
yeah, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I also had another question that I got from one of the chats I had. So, the basic concern with any data storage is speed and space. Some would argue the blockchain is the very antithesis of both. It's slow because every change requires validation and finality, and it's very restrictive in space as block sizes are fixed. So, how do you guys plan on solving this problem? Do you think this is going to be an issue for you guys?
So yeah, do you want to?
No, I think Trim is a good person to answer that for sure.
Yeah. So that is a very good question, because I think there are there's so many aspects of this, but it's worth noting that decentralization is not a blockchain specific concept, right? You can decentralize storage without requiring the blockchain to be involved with the actual file transfers or file opens or write, sort of these basic actions, right, that you do with each individual file, because that just obviously wouldn't scale. However, you can use blockchain for something like access control, and you can, whenever someone wants to access files, you authenticate using, the blockchain tech stack, like wallet authentications, these kinds of things that we're used to. Also, when imagine you have some sensitive files, like for example medical files, right, and someone wants to access these files, and they want to request access to your personal files, then they could submit a request and you can authenticate that request, and that admission of access even for a period of time, that can be handled on the blockchain in a that is actually somewhat scalable. However, the actual file transfers themselves, the file storage is none of the files are going on the blockchain. The files themselves are stored in this network and distributed and sort of working in a still decentralized manner. But each individual file isn't touching the blockchain, because there's no way that would scale, right? So that's part of the system that we designed when we did a full redesign as a part of the transition. So I could go on for hours
It
and
gets
hours on
super,
this, but
yeah.
oh, it looks like my camera's cutting off. My camera, for some reason, doesn't like StreamYard, so this might happen a couple of times, and I apologize in advance.
Yeah.
All
Yeah. So
good. Yeah.
just to summarize Trim a little bit, we aren't storing the files on the blockchain itself, right? That'd be inefficient. So the files are actually stored specifically to how the user wants them stored, because it really depends on the type of files that they're storing, because sometimes you need access to the files all the time. Sometimes you have archival records which aren't accessed every day, right? So if you want to pay a lower cost, you can store them at quote unquote a less performant node or less available node, paying cheaper prices. But if you want a higher performance node, higher availability, that's where we allocate the shards to. So it is definitely scalable in a sense that, we're not using blockchain for that purpose of storing files.
Yeah. So here's kind of the next question I have, because we're in the middle of a bear market right now, obviously, in crypto, and I know at least from the NFT side, a lot of projects we've been seeing say, "Hey, we're out of funding, we're out of this, we don't have the resources to continue X idea." And one of the things that like popped into my mind is you were saying Norway actually gave you guys a grant, which was super cool. But when it comes to the sort of like business model and sort of like just general funding with your guys' project. Are you guys getting like enough support right now from these different entities to basically build this out? And also, what's sort of your guys' business model as far as revenue generation? Are you guys basically charging customers, let's say this $2.11 per terabyte of storage? Are you guys keeping that and then just using the token as like an incentive for providing that storage? Or
Mhm.
how, yeah, so like what's kind of that side of things?
Yeah, so the business model and how it works is we take users paying a subscription fee. So they pay a certain fee monthly or yearly, and we take 10% commission off of that. 90% of that goes to resource providers. That 10% is further breaking down into giving back to IAG stakers and also buying back IAG tokens, and part of it goes to the Iagon treasury. So that's the in a sense, but the where the money actually is going to come most likely is from the futures itself, like a ledger flow, things like that, that will have maybe premium fees that will help garner more fees for the Iagon treasury, right? But it's in a sense the circular economy for the business model. So as you stake, you don't have to run a node, but if you run a node, you are incentivized for that. But if you just choose to stake, you also earn protocol revenues, right? So you earn partial revenues that are coming in inside Iagon as well. So protocol fees also are given to IG stakers. So the circular economy in that sense. So, right, for the funding part, we did raise amount in 2021, but we are going to do another round most likely. We don't know when. That's the question, but we are in a good situation that I have been fortunate enough to have two successful businesses. So in the meantime, I will continue to fund, as I did before, from 2017 onwards and stuff like that. I will continue to fund the project if need be. So it's we are not in that kind of situation that every project is. But of course, we would like to, of course, me myself, I would like to diversify risk, of course, and hopefully offer a compelling enough argument to raise more funds. But in the meantime, we don't need that. If for example the community says, oh no, we don't want you raising funds, or all this, we are okay with that. We will wait when the time is right. And we have looked at equity funding as well, but right now the market is not the best, I think, to raise capital in. So maybe we'll wait that out. We will see. But for now, we are okay.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I know. It's always one of those things where, especially right now, you're building and putting a lot of resources in, but the hope is that when the market starts to come back, that's when you guys will be in a really amazing situation. Have already pre-built all of this stuff now, because it takes a lot of time to build this stuff. Now, you had briefly mentioned the sort of use case for actually investing in Iagon. Because I feel like a lot of tokens out there, they don't really have a use case or any sort of real revenue coming in. But essentially with these Iagon tokens, just to double check, you can stake them and earn a percentage of the protocol rewards. So if this platform is successful and you guys get a lot of subscriptions and a lot of people using the platform, they should have a part of that. And then there's also, you said a percentage goes to buying back some of the tokens as well.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So that's a pretty big
this
incentive and alignment, I guess, with the success of the protocol and you guys.
Correct. And just to highlight further, the subscription fees don't stay silent, right? So what we are going to be doing is taking assets that are stable in subscription fees and converting them to ADA. And those, even though 90% of that goes to resource providers, they go to the resource providers on a monthly period. So let's say if someone signs up for a 1-year period, or for example, NFTs that use permaweb or perma storage, right? They store their NFTs forever, right? But they pay in advance, right? But they're not that amount is not paid to the resource providers right away. It's paid on a monthly period, making sure that they provide the services that they say. So what happens to the fees that are collected at that time? They're converted to ADA, and they're going to go through let's say a yield protocol, something like Genius Yield or a stake pool, where they're generating more yield on top of the fees, and that yield is also distributed to IAG stakeholders and Iagon Treasury. So there's a lot of, let's say, incentives for people that are using and also on the other side that are providing.
Sweet, sweet. And we are getting close to the end of this call today, guys. So if anyone else has any questions, feel free to put them. We did get another one from Abdul. When will individuals be able to provide storage? Currently, it's limited to certain larger providers as per their website.
So it's not actually limited. If you go to our website and go to the docs and tester guide, it's specifically, I can put a link in here for you guys. I'm not sure if you can see that. Maybe you can share that. And there's a test guide. Basically, you can sign up to be a tester and provide as much storage as you like.
Sweet. Yeah, I thought that's what the answer was too, because you had mentioned earlier that you guys already had like 300 people. We did get another question. So Gelato, when will the exact amount, I guess, what's the exact amount needed of IAG to run a node?
So there will be a minimum amount. It'll be variable depending on the amount of storage and the type of storage that you provide. And that we will announce, I think, by the end of this week or next week. So it'll be announced very soon, I think. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome. And I remember at the start, before we got into this, and we haven't brought it up yet, that you mentioned a liquidity reward program. Did you want to tap into that a little bit? I don't necessarily know what it is either.
Yeah, no worries. I mean, we're incentivizing people that are providing liquidity. We're doing it in a unique way. So we have a Cardano node pool open that you can delegate to. It's called IAGL1. I can write it down as well. And if you delegate to that pool, you can earn IAG rewards. Also, if you provide liquidity like IAG, ADA, liquidity pair, you also can earn rewards. And if there's a calculator to see how much you can earn in terms of, the amount of rewards that you can earn. So before even you delegate, before you provide the liquidity, you can check out the calculator as a new user and, check if it's worthwhile. And what we do here is the ADA rewards that we get from this pool, 99% of the 99% margin pool, we get 85% of the rewards go back to liquidity. So we put liquidity on the DEXs every month. 85% of the rewards go there. So that's how we've been increasing our liquidity pool on the DEXs.
Dude, I actually didn't even know you guys had that stake pool. That's nice. So you guys are taking pretty much 100% of the ADA rewards. So it's all IAG tokens. Do you know if that's been outpacing like the 3.5% in ADA?
So it hasn't been outpacing it. No, of course not, because they're more provided. But the rewards are paid out in next year over 12 months. So it'll start, the rewarding is vested. So it's in April over 12 months. It's not like every other protocol, because we're very careful of how we distribute the rewards. A lot of the projects, they distribute right away, which creates a sell pressure. We have more of a different mechanism where we distribute the beginning of April over 12 months.
Okay, so you can stake now and you're going to get your tokens in April.
Correct.
And it's going to be vested over 12 months?
Yeah, 12 months, correct. Yeah.
Okay, wow. I'm going to have to look into that. I know like some people in our project, they're like in new MX and new MC right now because you're getting their tokens, but it's starting to not be as like, I guess, profitable. So it's interesting. I'm always looking for like more stake pools to check out.
Yeah, currently there's about 33 million ADA delegated to it. So it's fairly large. I mean, we hope to get more as well, so that we can increase the liquidity of the pools.
Sweet. But yeah, I mean, that was kind of all my questions, guys. Nav, was there anything else that you sort of wanted to bring up today that we didn't cover?
No, I mean, I'd encourage you guys to check us out and maybe join the testnet. Maybe Trim wants to have a final words.
Yeah, I mean, I encourage everyone, of course, to follow both myself and Iagon Official on Twitter. You know, there's a lot of really exciting things coming out. So I do think that, along with the Discord and Telegram, are the best places to stay on top of news. Yeah, I'm very happy to see the progress with the project, and yeah, very bullish overall. And thank you for having us on.
Thank you for having us here. Thanks.
Dude, I mean, thank you guys for coming. It's always cool learning about the protocols directly from the founders too, and being able to ask questions. Just to get a better, because people can go on websites and maybe read through some of the docs, but it never translates the same as when you can talk to the team, and you kind of get a read of people too, because there's some scammy people in crypto, obviously. That's why it kind of has a negative rep. But if you're willing to come on a stream and be on YouTube and put your face on it, it goes a lot further. And answering, you had answers to every question that, I pretty much had and what people had asked me to ask as well. But yeah, I also appreciate everyone listening in today. And yeah, any final words before we wrap this up?
No, yeah. That's it. That's about it. Thanks everyone for tuning in.
Yeah, I just last sort of comment before we head out. When it comes to the the sort of some of the more scammy aspects of blockchain, I do think that the telecom industries, infrastructure like storage, like these cloud resources, this is exactly the industries that blockchain is really situated to disrupt. Like it's what it's ripe for decentralization, and that's exactly what's happening. So I'm very happy to be a part of one of these developments, because DeFi, who knows what the future is? NFTs, who knows what the future is? But infrastructure, I am 100% confident that that does have a decentralized future in order to disrupt these monopolies. So yeah, very happy to see the coverage.
Heck yeah, I like that. I like that ending here. But yeah, no, appreciate you guys once again. Thank you to everyone listening. Make sure to check out Iagon if you haven't already. I'm definitely interested in potentially running a node, because I think that would be pretty cool to do. But yeah, that wraps it up. I'll see you guys later.
See you guys later. Thanks.
Right.